We all know why Washington is nicknamed the Evergreen State. Its abundant evergreen forests, beautiful mountains, rivers, lakes, beaches. There's an opportunity to enjoy the outdoors in every corner of the state. Wide access to these outdoor shared spaces like hiking and biking trails, skiing and snowboarding, recreational fishing and boating, all of this is what characterizes Washington State. These shared landscapes give us a place to go with family, friends, and others in our community to build connections through nature. It's what gave us the title of being America's most naturally beautiful state, although I think we knew that already. But is it just me, or are things slowly changing? Ever wanted to go on a hike, but the air seems suffocating? Doesn't the ski season seem a bit shorter? And what are those machines spewing out fake snow? Washington State is seeing long-term warming trends. Temperatures across the state have risen almost 2 degrees Fahrenheit since the beginning of the 20th century. Especially problematic is how this is affecting our winters. Data from local weather stations show alarming warming trends in the winter. In Sedro-Woolley, Washington, west of the Cascades, minimum temperatures in January have seen an increase of 2.2 degrees in the last century. Eastern Washington has seen the same trends. In Kennewick, minimum temperatures in January have seen an increase of more than 3 degrees Fahrenheit in the last century. Warmer winters means more precipitation falling as rain instead of snow. The EPA published this graph showing how the snow water equivalent, which is the amount of water stored in the snow, has experienced lots of fluctuations, but overall, there has been a decline. The lowest point on this graph was in 2015, when the state saw a snow drought with record low snowpack levels. Regions across the state experienced less than half of the expected amount of snow. If you thought ski seasons were getting shorter, you were right. As this graph shows, the level of snowpack in Washington is always changing, but on average, from 1982 to 2023, the length of snowpack season in Washington has decreased, some regions experiencing seasons that are up to 40 days less than we'd expect. This means the amount of time you get on the slopes, skiing and snowboarding is shortened, impacting local economies that depend on ski lovers for their livelihoods. In 2019, Washington residents and tourists participated in nearly 600 million days of recreation in the outdoors, generating more than $18.8 billion. But statewide warming trends are threatening these economic benefits, and many ski resorts in the Cascade Range have all had to adapt to declining snowpack in order to keep their businesses going. Snowmaking machines have thus become more and more popular among ski resorts, but this can actually make the problem worse. These machines use up to 5,000 gallons of water in just 1 minute, and not only do they spit out snow, but greenhouse gas emissions as well. Crystal Mountain, for instance, had to close their lower elevation slopes in 2015 because there was no snow coverage there at all. So, in 2017, they spent $5 million to build a snowmaking system that have the capacity to cover up to 53 football fields in snow in just 24 hours. Less snow from warming temperatures means ski slopes have to compensate using high-energy technologies that further contribute to global warming, which leads to even less snow, and the cycle continues. Less snow doesn't just affect winter activities, though. Decreased snowpack means more winter precipitation as rain, causing erosion and higher river flows, which will wash out trails, bridges, and roads. If these conditions continue, access to trails and campgrounds will become more difficult as flooding events become more frequent. The opposite is also becoming a problem. Wildfires in Washington are now more frequent and severe. Although spring snowmelt and spring rains can cause too much water to accumulate sometimes, these earlier melting periods and less snow being stored up on the mountains doesn't leave much water for the drier seasons. Drier, hotter summers are the perfect breeding grounds for wildfires. There is a stark increase in acres burned when comparing the decade from 2004 to 2014 versus 2014 to 2024. In 2024 alone, more than 300,000 acres burned in the state, which is double the records from 2023. This, along with floods, will lead to more trailhead closures, and the poor air quality from smoke will confine hikers to stay indoors. Increasing temperatures, decreasing snowpack, floods, and wildfires, these things do not only affect outdoor recreation, it impacts all of us, on and off the slopes. Some places, like Crystal Mountain, can use technologies like snow machines to maintain some sort of an image of normalcy. Outside of these places, though, local communities bear the brunt of environmental degradation. This map shows which communities in Washington experience the most health disparities. Places around the Tacoma and Seattle areas, as well as in the Yakima, Tri-Cities, and Spokane regions, experience high health risks from environmental effects. This map shows where tribal boundaries exist in the state, showing a lot of overlap with the dark purple spots on the map, so you can see how these communities are disproportionately impacted by environmental health problems. This can all feel very hopeless, but there are ways to get involved in fighting for a healthier Washington for all communities. The Washington Conservation Action, for example, is a great place for resources. They hold annual meetings where they decide the biggest priorities for the year, which are all listed on their website. Also on their website are ways you can get involved on different scales. On a more local level, there are many climate advocacy groups all over the state. Joining these clubs and going to city council meetings are all steps towards positive change. Washington state is getting dangerously warm, making the climate change in ways we haven't seen before. Staying educated, spreading information, and becoming involved on a local scale can help protect Washington's beautiful landscapes so it can continue to be enjoyed by all communities. Together, we can keep Washington forever green.